Hey there, CYUK. This is Will Neer, Digital Marketing Specialist over at CYUK. So excited to begin the content population process alongside you and kind of give as many tips and tricks as I can to help you as you get into the new environment. So I've created this Trello board that has a couple of different uses. Um, you totally don't have to use this if you don't want to. I found it very helpful to organize content and visualize where in the process I was with each, page, each various piece of content as it went through the process. As the necessary people saw it. It was helpful for me to keep track. So we'll get to the resources in a second, super important, but I want to start here with the draft in progress section. So when you first have content that either is new and you're working on, or is something that you're working on refreshing from the old site, you're going to want to start here in this draft in progress section. I've created this sample card here that shows kind of what you can do with each of these cards. You can start up here with labels. You can label it with the content pillar that most aligns with this specific page or piece of content. And then you can have a description here for what you're trying to achieve with the page. And then down here, you can actually attach the document from any word processor or online source, whatever you use. You can attach it here in this section, so it stays on the card. And as you kind of move through the process with content, it'll always be there, easily accessible to everyone who's working on it. Down here, I've created a little editorial progress checklist. This was helpful for me as well, as you kind of move through the process with each piece to make sure you don't forget anything or miss anything. And as you check them off, it gives you a little percentage, which is good as well, I think, for keeping track. But again, whatever you feel is helpful is what's best. Can also set due dates easily here if you want to convey to whoever's creating the content or refreshing the content that you need it back by a certain time. So that's the sample card I created. You can either just use this, copy it right down here, and name whatever. So it's say impact, or whatever page you're creating. Just create the title here. You can choose what to keep and what to get rid of. Right down here in this area, if you say, the checklist is actually not all that helpful for me, the editorial progress, I'm just going to get rid of that. You can do that easily. And then you just hit create. The other thing you can do is just add another card, and you can start with the title, impact, doing that, impact page, and then hit add card. And then you can start from scratch and use this actions and this add to card feature over here to customize the card however you want. I should also mention that you can add members to the card. So anyone who belongs to this board, you can kind of assign different people, different tasks based on what content is inside this card to begin with. So pretty helpful stuff there, I think. But again, whatever works best for you. Get rid of this. So there's a couple ways you can get rid of cards, but archive here is, I think, the most efficient way. So this card is archived, and then that way there is an archive somewhere if you click in your profile, so you can then get the card back if you need to. So as you are working on content, I created these headers based on what we used for each step of the content process, but you can rename them if you want to. But what we found helpful was, as you are working on content and you've got the draft done and you're ready to send it to an editor for review, just hypothetically, you could carry this card over here, pop it there, and so that way you would know that it's in the editor's hands at this point. And then once you get it back, you can bring it over, draft in final revisions. Then once you have those final revisions in, you can say content final, And then as we're actually building the pages, we'll pull them into this section, page created, and then page checked and ready to go. So again, just a kind of visual way to kind of see the process of content as you go. And again, you can customize the headers for each section if there's kind of a different process you're taking, whatever works best for you. And I'm more than happy to help you customize this to your needs. Over here, in the resources section, I've actually dropped in here a bunch of stuff that I think may help kind of inform this process. The thing that we'll likely want to start with is the sitemap. So clicking into here. So building a sitemap, this is partially at the top, at least here, a copy of our sitemap that we used to create our new website. You'll replace kind of these items with the headers and the different sections that you're using. But I thought it would be helpful to see some of our information, sort of how we broke it out. So just taking you through the columns, the sitemap level refers to parent pages and their subcontent. So level 0 is universal on every page. So that's your primary navigation, your utility navigation, and your footer content. So anything gray is going to be universally accessible on every page. The way that we've broken it out here is at the top, these items here are our our utility navigation. These 3 here, site search, and then privacy policy. I'm not sure why it's up here, but don't worry about that. We'll actually just get rid of that for now. And below here is stuff that ended up in the footer for us. Again, we can work with you to kind of customize your experience, but it's good to begin kind of thinking about your headers especially, and all of your universal items that are going to be on each page. As we come down here, anything in gray, once again, is accessible on every page. These items here are your section headers in the primary navigation. So ours, if you look at our website, we have about, the experience, impact, alumni life, and then the apply now call to action up in our navigation, our primary nav. These pages in blue below those are anything that live in the drop-down menu if you were to hover over one of those section headers. Coming over here into column B, just to talk about sitemap number a little bit. So 0.0 would be anything that's universally on any page, and it's standalone. It does not have any sub-pages to it. These, the gray section headers, which show up in the primary nav, those are assigned numbers in the sitemap number section. So the first one, 1.0, is about, and then anything 1 point is within the about section. Same deal coming all the way down the line. If you come down here below the black bar, these are any subpages below the subpages that actually exist underneath the primary navigation page. So, for instance, up here we have 1.1, history and values, underneath 1.0, about. So then if we come down here, 1.1.1 is actually the values page. So it would be underneath history and values. One below that, one click below that is values. And so that works for all of these. It's the same deal. And if you read the numbers left to right, you can match the child page or sub page, whichever way you want to say it, to the parent page, which lives in the navigation. Seeing numbers that end in X with this kind of tan cream color to it, These are pages that there can be multiple of. So for instance, here you see team sponsors. If you have those and want to feature them, you can then have as many as you want live underneath this kind of team sponsors landing page. So you'd have like team sponsor 1, team sponsor 2, and you can create as many of those as you need just by adding lines in here. Any of this stuff in blue, as I mentioned, it's living underneath your primary navigation items, and these are national pages. So these are pages that pertain to the UK as a whole. And again, you don't have to use what we have here. You can delete this and change it, delete any of these headings or, page names and change them around, do whatever you need to do. This is just illustrative to kind of show you how we went about it. And now down here below this black bar is your local pages. So I've broken it out for pages for London, pages for Manchester, and pages for Birmingham. I left the information here underneath London that we used, just again, illustrative to kind of show you how we thought about it. Change this around as much as you need to, and let me know if I can help to clarify this process at all. But as you begin to kind of think about the content that's going to live within just the London specific section, for instance, you can put it down here beneath the overview London detail page, which is going to be the landing page for City or London. And you can create the pages that are going to live underneath that. This refers to level 4 because if a user were coming from the home page, they would need to click About, then Locations, and then eventually get to the London page. So 4 layers down if you're coming from the home page. The page name in column C is just the internal name of the page that you'll be using. It's good to name it something you'll remember and keep track of. Column D here is the unique page title. That's going to be the external page title that you will use in WordPress. And so you see up here in this tab, I have sitemap-uk-Google Sheets. What you name the page in WordPress, the unique page title, is what's going to show up here in this tab here in Google Chrome, for instance. So good to be mindful of that. And then here in column E is the permalink. So it's going to be the page URL. And that in WordPress, we'll show you in the training, but that in WordPress will correspond to the page name. So column C. All right, great. So this is the sitemap, like I said. Customize this however you want. These, you don't have to use About and the experience and impact. You can use fewer section headers than this. It's honestly up to you, whatever you find most helpful. So that is the sitemap. And again, it's a little hard to kind of talk about in abstract terms. It'll be a little bit easier once we discuss again and kind of figure out what you want your primary utility nav section headers to be. Then you can kind of fill in the content that'll live below those. This document here is the content project plan. And I've laid this out, again, very similarly to how we used it when we were building our content and conceptualizing it. So this content project plan document, it has a bunch of different features to it here. Sorry, I have the thing that I'm using to record the video is in the way of my Excel menu. There we go. Okay, great. So here in this first tab, new content recommendations, This is anywhere that you can keep track of independent new content that does not currently exist on your site, but that you want to create for this process. And you just describe kind of what you are envisioning for the content here in column A. Check if it's new or if it's something that has existed before but is being refreshed here. And then check the box for which content pillar it corresponds to. You can also then, in these sections over here, track if there are people with different roles who are working on this page or piece of content. If there's a primary editor and a content manager, the way that we broke this down is we gave everyone content to work on. And so they would be the content manager. And then we had an editor, someone else, look at the page afterwards and, make sure that it, flowed correctly and didn't have any typos, anything like that, that it corresponded to the content pillar, and then it would work in the section that they were hoping to put it in. If you have any business partners, any external folks that you need to talk to about the page, you can put their names here. Good way to track that. So this is anything new, anything that's independent, or if it's maybe kind of existed before, but you would like it to be refreshed. You can put this content here and just kind of think it out and use this collaborative space to do that. The keeps only list is the next tab over, and that is all of the web pages that Rosalie had identified that should be kept from your previous website. And she actually went through and picked a content pillar that those pages corresponded to. She picked about 88 pages, it looks like, to come over, so that's great. Take another look at this and just make sure that you agree, and anything that she chose to get rid of, I will upload the document that she used to decide these keeps and archives, just to make sure that nothing falls off the radar. And then the next tabs correspond to each section header that you have. So each primary navigation item. I still have these named after hours because they correspond to that last document, the sitemap that we were looking at. So for us, 1.0 is about. So you'd have the about landing page, and then you can do 1.1 for anything directly below that, 1.2, etc. Or maybe you have something below 1.1, so you go 1.1.1. And so it's just a good way to visualize if you break it out by sort of, that section header that we've been talking about, the section header, primary navigation item. And you can rename these to reflect the ones that you choose. You don't have to use the same ones as us, as I've said. So you could just hit rename and call it whatever you want. And so you can kind of go through each section and decide what pages are going to be the kind of parent landing pages, and then what pages will be accessible through those. And then if you want to break it out by location, as I was showing in the sitemap, you can have London-specific pages, Manchester-specific pages, Birmingham-specific pages. Additionally, those other gray items can have in your utility nav, you can have two items. So we have returning applicants and donate. And in the footer, I believe you can have up to either 5 or 6 items. Good question. Let's figure that out. So looks like you can have 5 things in the footer. Perhaps in a step I should have taken before, I'll illustrate again what I mean by the navigations. So this is the primary navigation. So if we're talking about 1.0, here on this spreadsheet or in the sitemap, 1.0 about. That's this right here, about. And so page 1.0 will be this page, cityyear.org/about. Then coming down the line, 1.1, history and values, et cetera, down the line. Experience 2.0, impact 3.0, alum life 4.0. So you can have 4 of these. You can choose what words, what you want them to say, and then pick the pages that are going to live underneath those. And then where you start to see more numbers in the sitemap is like pages that live underneath what to expect. So if a page lives underneath what to expect, it actually lives under what to expect, which lives under the experience. So that's where you see kind of the numbers start to increase. Back on that sitemap page that we were looking at. And again, like this can be a little confusing at first. I know I was a little bit confused at first. So I left in these numbers again so that you can just kind of use this to look at the site currently and match it up to these sections and see how the sitemap was built. I think it'll help you as you try to build these. Okay, great. So those are 2 resources. Third up is the ontology document, which is a big document that has all of the specs for all of the different modules that we use within the website. So if you're looking for character limits, if you're looking for image sizing, anything like that is going to live in this document here. So you can use the table of contents that you want to know about the quote module because you want to use it. So you can come here, click on the spot or words in the table of contents, or over here in the outline. And over here you have all the specs, all the information you could want to know about the quote module. So you see that there's 300 characters maximum. You see that 200 or shorter is ideal, but 300 is the absolute max. And all of the sections that you can add to this. Also the image specs if you want to add a headshot in the module, 120 by 120 minimum, and the possible colors that each can be. So this is a great resource as you kind of get to know the modules that we work with to build the page builder pages in the website. I also attached a module cheat sheet. It's a short document, actually a PowerPoint that you can print out and keep with you as you're using and planning pages. So you can kind of put the modules together and say, yeah, so I'm going to use a secondary masthead followed by a 2-up card, etc. So you can just kind of visualize as you kind of figure out how to tell the story of each page, which modules to use. So these attachments down here, some other kind of helpful resources. Right here, timeline. I actually have the project timelines for both UK and South Africa. Here, click over here to UK. And this is the timeline for the project as of right now. As you see, I have some week of spots, so I have to schedule some of these meetings still. I will send over some options of times when we're all available to meet. But by each of these dates, to accomplish each of these actions, we had the kickoff meeting on the 13th. I'm sending all of the materials on the 31st. And then we can start in earnest the week of the 6th. I'll check in with you to make sure that you don't have any questions or concerns about the materials I've sent. Then we'll have a tech call to speak more in depth about how the server space is going to work, your switch over to Pantheon, all of the capabilities that WordPress has, your application, all of these things we will talk about in that meeting. The week of the 24th, we'll have a call with creative to solidify the images, icons, colors, all those kind of things that you will use as you build the site. On the 24th, we'll look to finalize the sitemap, so that document that I was talking about so much before, with all of those navigation headers and the page hierarchy. On the 10th, I'd love to check in on content, see how everything's going, both words on the page and kind of where everything's going to go, how it's going to be expressed. On the 22nd, there's a couple things I'm hoping that we can have done. Finalize the application source, the provider that we're going to use for the application, if we're going to stick with your current format or switch it up. On the 22nd, would also like to have creative and content finalized in that Trello board or outside, however you choose to do it. To be determined when we're going to switch to the Pantheon server from your current server. Have to have a conversation with Pantheon about that still, so that is upcoming. We will start content population on May 11th when Namrata and I are there with you. We'll do testing sort of throughout that whole time from the 11th to the 18th, and then on the 18th we expect to go live. So some very exciting stuff there. If anything, looks odd or looks like we might have not enough time or too much time, probably less of a chance on the latter. But let me know if something here looks not doable or ambitious, and we can work to adjust the timeline. I've attached the site brief that Rosalie provided me with a couple months ago, which was very, very helpful for me as I started to kind of wrap my head around this process. So just so we have that handy. Down here, I have the architecture, which may be a good place to start as you try to figure out your navigation items. So we used this first, even before the sitemap, to kind of try to figure out what was going to live in each section. So as you work with this, and this is the one that we used, so erase it, move it around, do whatever you need to do. But this is a good articulation of how we thought about it and how we kind of assigned different sections their subpages. We also have the utility nav in the footer here, so the the architecture of sort of the bare bones of how we were going to put together the site. So another helpful document. I have the notes from our meeting attached here in this document. And then two more documents here. The content audit. This is the document that Rosalie provided me in deciding to keep what to archive. So anything in this sheet that's marked false is stories or pages or just pages that Rosalie decided should be archived and not brought over to the new site. Take a look at this and just make sure that you agree. All of the things that she marked true, I brought into that page on the project plan, the keep only. So anything that she marked true in this document is over here in this keeps only. So if there's something else that you believe should be added that she marked false, you can come in here and add it to this keeps only section in the content project plan. Okay, great. And finally, I've dropped in here a PowerPoint. Well, it's PDF form, but it's a PowerPoint of our content strategy. So this was helpful for us. This was way back when we started the process, how we wanted to articulate our new website. in this new way, with positioning ourselves in a strong brand messaging, in strong brand messaging, I should say, down to a sound content strategy, and that was going to inform sort of how we worked on, or how we did all of our work and all of our communicating. Really helpful in here as well is the content pillars, explanations of those, that I guess they're deeper in here than I thought, but just helpful things in here that we worked with as we were considering the best way to kind of package our messaging. And in there are the content pillars. I'll add those kind of separately so that they have their kind of own space to live, so you don't have to scroll through that whole PowerPoint if you don't want to, but definitely worth a read to kind of see where we are and how we arrived at all the decisions we made visually and from a content perspective. So that is your Trello board. Looking forward to checking in with you next week. But in the meantime, if you have content that you're working on, if you have started to think about an information architecture, like here would be a great place to start to solidify these things, and then we can work from there. Again, this is Will Neer, digital marketing specialist at City Year US. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. My email address is wnear@cityyear.org. Excellent. Thank you so much.